Welcome to the HU Move Makers podcast, where we highlight folks that are blazing the trail and making moves in Howard culture. Welcome to the HU Move Maker podcast, where we highlight folks in Howard culture that are trendsetters and move makers. Today we got a special guest on the show. We're talking AIA, AICP, NOMA, LEED, AP. Got a licensed architect and urban designer in Gensler, Chicago office, right?
Yep, you got it.
Man, I mean, this brother's a certified planner, but he's also the president. You salute that man when you see him. The president of the National Organization of Minority Architects, man. Bachelor's from Howard University. Then he went to Columbia, man. He got his master's, man. None other than Jason Pugh.
What up, Josh? Appreciate you having me, man.
AKA Jay and Dre. AKA Nightmare on Hubbard Street. Depends on who you ask. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, we let it all out. Okay, let's go.
Oh man, got all your business out there, bruh. Yeah, man. So if you can't get in the party, man, that's the one you want to talk to, man. So Jay, man, tell me, man, this architectural journey, man. I don't see too many black people, you know, in this field. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
How'd you get in it, man? And you know, it's one thing to be an architect, I guess, another thing to be a licensed architect. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother ball game, a whole nother series of tests, exams, and responsibilities.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. It's you know, it's an interesting question. I mean, you know, most people think, you know, you got to be artistic, you got to be great at math. You know, there's some stereotypes that are out there that I think kind of actually discourage folks from even considering an opportunity to go into architecture. But it's really one of those professions where you almost have to be a Renaissance man in a lot of respects. You have to, you don't have to be great at everything, but you need to be good at a few things in order to be successful within this within this career. So for me, architecture, I was actually exposed to design at a very early age. I was in a couple of different programs in middle school, high school, was already a youth artist. So I was an artist growing up in Denver, Colorado, selling my artwork. I had artists that were working with me, exposing me to different mediums, teaching me the ropes. And I was kind of just sitting back watching them, they were all amazing artists. And really just seeing them struggle, you know, because they definitely fit the bill of the struggling artist mold, and wanted to find you know, some kind of career path that I could still use my artistic talents and skill sets, but apply it to something that was a little bit more tangible, something that was a little bit more respectable in terms of a career, and at least had like a clear trajectory and path for me to follow. And that was architecture. I think it might have been an art teacher that I had in middle school who literally said, you know, you should consider architecture. And it just kind of stuck with me from there. So yeah, man, it was started early. The gateway was art. And then it kind of expanded from there. But I knew from the onset, early on in high school, maybe 9th, 10th grade, that I wanted to be an architect when I grew up, and I wanted to go to an HBCU.
So that's interesting, man. And coming to a HBCU, you know, Howard, I don't think it's that many HBCUs that even offer a architecture program. And not only that, I think that scheme is like 5 years or 6 years or something like that, man. So that's a commitment.
Yeah. So there's at the time we used to have a few more schools, but currently there's only seven wow. HBCUs that offer an accredited architectural program, in architectural design. There's a few other ones that are thrown in there that have landscape design and maybe urban planning. But there's 7 that have accredited architectural programs. So of course you're looking at Howard, you're looking at Hampton, Tuskegee, Morgan, FAMU, Prairie View, and UDC. So.
Damn. So, I mean, I know you say you don't got to be great at math and drawing, but is that a skill set that you need to have? You know, being good at math and art?
I mean, the artistic piece, it definitely helps. I mean, obviously with architecture, there's a lot of creativity that's involved. So that piece definitely helps. And honestly, I'm not going to lie. I think my artistic talents is really what kind of helped me a lot in school. being able to kind of, work with professors and team members and whatnot, and be able to very quickly kind of sketch and hash out your ideas on paper. Doing that, even with clients now today, I think is really super helpful, kind of sets you apart. But I would be lying if I said that a great architect or the great architects that I know and I work with on a daily basis at Gensler, that everyone is an amazing artist. That's definitely not the case. We have really great project managers that are licensed architects, and they kind of found their niche in terms of managing clients and projects and teams. There are really great architects that are very technical, that get into the actual the details and the components of the building, how the building comes together and the materiality. And then you have designers who are really more, I would say, high level, kind of come in, do the concept design, right? That's the glorious part, right? That's always glorified, that everybody loves to hear and see. They come in and do the concept design, and then they kind of work with the technical designers. They work with the production team to actually get these projects designed and built. So a lot of different roles, a lot of different opportunities. It's just not as clear and cut as dry as maybe most people think it is.
Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. Is it the more creative you got to be? I mean, the more creative you are, the more, I guess, good at math you got to be?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm terrible at math. So, and luckily, the computer, I'd be lying if I said the computer doesn't do the majority of the math for us these days. I mean, the software applications that we're working in, they're doing a lot of, those calculations. Now, that's not to say, I mean, you still need to have a basic concept of math. We get into physics, we get into, structures. You definitely obviously get into geometry, those kind of things. You definitely need to be able to apply quickly. But when you get into the real heavy detailed stuff, I mean, we're not doing trig or nothing.
What about on the exam to get licensed? Was a lot of math?
Yes. So there was some equations on there on the exams that I took. So the ARE, which is the Architectural Registration Exam, when I took it, there were 7 exams that you had to pass, and they gave you 5 years.
Damn, 7 exams?
7.
Are they all were they all like equally hard, or they got progressively harder?
Some were harder than others. It was definitely it was a huge hurdle to kind of get past, and then
you passed all 7.
I passed all 7, man. I passed all 7.
Why does a brother got to take 7 exams? Why can't I just take one? Like,
like
I'm just saying, right? What is
the bar, right?
What does the 7th exam get you that the 5th one can't? Like, what's going on here?
all the exams are different. All the exams are different. There's one exam that's specifically focused on structures, right? So that exam, I mean, that's definitely more heavy in terms of, I would say, equations and math. You're literally like kind of like a random example or question is, you have a 500-pound chandelier hanging, in the middle of this ballroom, on a diameter, on a cord that has a 1-inch diameter and is so long, and what's the weight capacity, questions like that, where you're really kind of like getting into, you're getting into physics, that you need to have a general knowledge.
I'd have walked out. Like, fuck it. I'm gonna do this podcast thing.
So there's like general equations, but then there's an exam on like site design, because usually it's not just the building, but you're also dealing with the site. You're dealing with grading and contours. So that's an exam in and of itself that I took. There's another one that's completely focused on materiality. I mean, you think about the thousands and thousands of different type of materials that we utilize to construct buildings.
So you got to know all these materials by heart?
No, you need to have a general knowledge. That's what they're looking for on the exams, is that you have a general knowledge of the subject matter and you know how to apply it. It's almost impossible, and it's overwhelming to try to know everything, right? And then the other piece to it is, like, we deal with a lot of consultants. It's not just the architect that's delivering a project. You have a mechanical engineer, electrical, plumbing, civil, structure engineer. So they're doing a lot of the work, but I need to at least know what they're doing how it applies and corresponds, and is actually coordinated with what I'm doing, and making sure all the systems come together. So I don't need to be an expert at mechanical engineering, but I need to know how the systems work and how they're applied to my project. So the exam kind of covers those kind of things. And if I'm being honest with you, I probably literally forgot maybe like 70% of what I studied for if it didn't apply directly to what I'm working on every single day. But it's part of the process.
So I mean, when you pass these exams, does that mean you're gonna make more bread though?
You definitely typically get a promotion for sure when you become licensed. The firm, they're able to bill you at a much higher rate. It's like the difference between a junior staff member and a project lead, a project architect. So they're definitely able to bill you more. And there's also, I think, more opportunities that you get in life within your career, right? Like, so case in point, even me being able to ascend to this position within NOMA as the national president of this great organization, you have to be
shameless plug. Shameless plug.
oh, I'm gonna sneak it in. Trust me, absolutely. But even with NOMA, you can't even serve as your local chapter president of NOMA without being a licensed architect. So there's things like that, that without being licensed, it's kind of a roadblock. You can only go but so far.
That's dope, man. So I'm sure folks, man, be hitting you up all the time with questions, man. How you do this? How you do that? I got a quick question, man. So in this equation, man, when it comes to real estate, and who's most important in this whole thing? Is it the architect? Is it the engineer? Is it the contractor?
I'm biased.
Be honest, man. Who's most important, bro?
I'm gonna tell you the architect, of course. That was an easy one. I mean, I think it really, it comes down to the project. It comes down to the project. It comes down to the client and what the client is looking for. And if they value quality design services, there are a lot of GCs, construction management companies that are out there. They do design build, right? They do both the design. They'll give you whatever standard option design options that they can afford you. They may have an in-house designer to help you kind of tweak and customize your kitchen or your addition or your bathroom, right? And then they'll go out and they'll get the permits and they'll help build it. But it's completely different than the experience of working with a knowledgeable, qualified, and good architect who can really help you through design, who can show you the value and different options, and really kind of walk you through the process. It's completely different. So it depends on what the client is looking for. If you're looking for, I know you're tied to real estate and you do a lot of stuff throughout Chicago, with some of your projects. If you're looking for that quick turnaround, that gut flip fix, and you're looking to get the job done and do it quickly and less concerned about the design, then maybe it doesn't make sense for you to bring on an architect on your project, especially if the budget is tight, right? But if you
don't do tight budgets. You don't do tight budgets, do you, Jay? Your budget tight, don't call me.
Well, no. I mean, I definitely do. So that's the other piece to it is honestly, finding more opportunities to give quality design to underserved communities. Those people who don't necessarily have the means or can afford quality design but need it the most. That's the other problem, right? It's architects, man, if you look at society and let's call it a pyramid, I would say out of that pyramid, you have that 1% of our population that's at the top in terms of wealth and income. And I would say easily, I forget the last stats that I saw, but I think, probably maybe 80% of architectural projects was dedicated to that 1%, right? Which is crazy, when you think about it. And so there has to be a different model that's out there that's kind of flipped, where there's more focused on, serving that bottom 98%, 99%, right, of the country, who deserve quality design as well.
Damn, man, that's crazy, bro. So, talk to me, man, about some of the projects that you work on, man. I know that architects are involved in all type of design projects, man, but when I look at Gensler, man, these guys, just on the website, man, some of the projects that I see look like multi-million dollar nine-figure projects,
Yeah,
um,
billion dollar projects in some.
billion-dollar
Yeah.
projects, bro. I mean, are you somebody that helps or takes the lead on projects like this?
Yeah, so Gensler's actually, I mean, it's a great firm. I've been with Gensler now over 9 years. Gensler is the largest architecture and design firm in the world. So I'm very
Oh
clear to
wow, so
say
you
A and
cashing
D.
out then? Oh, you
Well,
the golden goose.
I'm clear to say A and D. So you got architecture design, and then you got
Wow.
architecture and engineering. So architecture and engineering is those are gigantic companies that kind of cover a little bit of everything, whereas architecture and design is much more focused. Within that group, Gensler is the largest firm. We got, I think, about 45 offices across the globe. And I've been part of the Chicago office now for 10 years. My role as a senior associate at Gensler, I work on a wide variety, a couple of different projects as both an architect and an urban designer. You mentioned earlier about my background and certification with urban design, urban planning. So I get an opportunity to work on community master planning projects, and then also when some of those projects are carried forward, get a chance to actually work on the actual design, documentation, and implementation of those projects. So some of the projects that I know you're familiar with, at least talking about Chicago here locally, the former Harold Ickes, which is now the development's called South Bridge. That's actually under construction. It's about 2 to 3 blocks from where I live here in the South Loop. That's a community master planning project. That's a former Chicago public housing development that I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh
Did a
yeah.
community master plan for Oakwood Shores over in Bronzeville. And in the process, hopefully it was put on hold last year during the pandemic, but I think it's about to come back online. And that's the next phase for Cabrini Green, where we're introducing, I believe, about 460 units at this site that's basically the corner of Claiborne and Larrabee.
Damn.
So
So you kind of had an inside scoop in terms of like what areas are gonna appreciate because you know what projects are gonna be coming there. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, to some degree. Most of the stuff with the projects, especially the ones with the city, most of those are kind of public knowledge. But and then I would even say, as a planner and urban designer, you're kind of trained to understand the growth corridors, where things are trending and where concentrated development is going to take place. So, and yeah, of course, through RFPs and stuff that come to the city, where they go to Gensler directly and they're looking for us to go in and bid on projects and make a proposal, you kind of get an inside track as to what's down the pipeline, so to
Damn.
speak.
So do you have to like sign like non-disclosure agreements when you guys are, you
And
know,
in some cases, yeah, for sure.
damn, that's crazy, man. Yeah, that's real interesting, man. That so how much? I mean, like, at what point, if I'm a contractor or a developer, at what point do I come and see you or somebody like you?
Oh man, from the beginning.
So you step one.
I would most certainly say, there's a couple different business models out there, but in terms of whether you're on project and it's a design bid build or if it's a design build, but either way, I think the architect is probably one of the first people that you should engage with. The architect, I mean, if you got a lot of land, a plot of land that's in the city, an architect will be able to very quickly go in, check the zoning, let you know what's the allowable buildable gross square footage, building height restrictions, setbacks and whatnot, and what your building envelope could be, right? Just even understanding that. A lot of times developers will come to architects and have us do just really, really rough preliminary site analysis to give them a clear picture on what the opportunities are on a site, if it's feasible, if it makes sense for them to go after and develop this land. So architects, they're key. We're kind of trained to kind of do it in steps for sure. So I would say, engage with an architect early on in the process if you
Damn.
can.
So I come see you early. So is it fair to say that a lot of times you might draw up plans, they got to pay you for the plans, and they might not ever even get used?
Oh, that happens a lot. Absolutely. That definitely happens a
Man,
lot.
that
But
just seems like a ton of bread wasted.
but also, so again, we're not, when I'm doing the first initial kind of like site analysis, feasibility study, I'm not doing full out construction documents, right? We're talking about like, it could even be just generic massing. I mean, here's a generic massing, here's your floors, here's your max building volume that's allowable per the zoning. Even just having that information and without even going into the detail of what the interior walls and the rooms look like, and just rough square footages, maximum square footage, 50,000 square feet, X amount of square foot of retail, X amount of square footage of, residential, whatever that may be, max building heights. Those are things that we do fairly quickly and shouldn't be all that expensive, depending on the project, especially when we're talking about low rise development, 3 flats, duplexes, single family homes. Those are pretty quick and easy, to be honest.
Is that, I mean, what's your sweet spot specifically? You like, what do you focus on?
At Gensler, definitely focused on more of the mixed use projects, mixed use residential high rises with ground level retail. I have a lot of experience working on those, a lot of experience working in hospitality. So we're talking about like hotels. There's a few projects that I've been able to kind of touch and work on. And even now, I mean, I'm getting experience actually working on a project for the Department of Energy, a critical facilities project out in.
Come on, Jay Pugh, get it, bruh. Get it, Jay Pugh. I see you, man. Okay, Department of Energy, man. That's dope.
We trying, man. We trying, but
Yo, that's what's up, man. So, where do you see like I mean, are you one of them people like, you an architect, you walk in a building like, this is a piece of crap. Like, do you walk in places like that? Do you find yourself doing that like randomly?
Yeah. I try not to. I try not to, but yeah, I'm always kind of like looking at things and kind of assessing like, oh man, the craftsmanship on that is crappy. Like, what were they thinking on this? It's funny. One thing that is kind of like my pet peeve, especially like with residential high rises. We got a lot of high rises that are being thrown up now in the South Loop, in West Loop of Chicago. I hate seeing glass buildings with columns in the corner. So, I see them kind of going up, and I'm just like, wondering, what they're doing with some of these structural systems and designs.
So is that on the architect or is that on the engineer?
It's both. I mean, the architect designs it, right? So the architect, again, works with the structural engineer. We lay out, we try to coordinate like a structural framing plan. We work with the engineer to make it work, right? We design it. Structural engineers help us make sure it stands up. But we do have some control on, and I think push and pull when it comes to the design of a project. And so if I want to be able to shift and move a column or offset columns so I can have a free and clear corner glass transition, that's something, if that's a priority. Of course, there are cost implications behind that, but if that's a priority and part of the design, then that's how
man, them cost implications, bro. Man,
everything has cost implications. You know that.
Man, so where do you see like because since the pandemic, man, I feel like not retail, but commercial is getting killed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
People working from home. You got a lot of companies downtown paying these super high leases. But companies are starting to see like, man, okay, we can function and folks can work from home.
Man.
So now, right. If I'm somebody that's working from home, I kind of want my crib to like have all these multiple uses, man. Where do you see architecture and creativity going in the future?
Man, that's a good question, man. And there's a lot of different studies. There's been a lot of discussions around that, especially the last 2 quarters of 2020, really kind of, diving into all that. And a lot of it's still unknown. People are making projections, but I'll tell you this. So before the pandemic, one thing that, Gensler does a lot of workplace, office fit outs. We work with, every major, I would say, global corporation or company you can think of. We're working with them on their headquarters, in different states and different cities. And so we had we're always trying to educate them on, especially when it comes to workplace, on the opportunities with flexible workspace, flexible workstations, hoteling, where maybe, there's more shared communal space, less actual, offices and cubicles or whatnot. We try to push a lot of those programs in, allow more flexibility and open space towards the exterior and the windows. And we're always trying to educate the client on this process and pros and cons of some of these moves, right? And before, back in the day, we were also trying to tell them, hey, there's a benefit to maybe instead of having so many a designated workstation for every single person, to actually maybe explore more options and opportunities with teleworking, where maybe only 70% of your staff is actually at the office every day, and then the 30%, some are working from home, some are in the field. Maybe there's a transition. Maybe it's someone who isn't in the office all the time. They're sharing the space with another colleague or coworker, and a lot of time, a lot of the pushback we got, especially with teleworking, was, well, we don't want to invest in technology, and be honest with you, we don't trust our employees to be productive and get things done when they're working from home, right? That was what we heard pre-pandemic. Now, you literally have a whole year where companies have been forced to invest in that technology. There was no choice. They either, swallowed the tough pill and paid the bill on the technology upgrade piece, or they went out of business. And so they had to invest in the technology so their employees could still work from home. And now they have we're going 3, 4, 5, I don't know how many more quarters folks are still going to be working from home, but now they have multiple quarters to kind of look back and review and kind of see their numbers and say, man, productivity did not drop. In fact, in some cases, it actually went up. And now they're doing surveys with their employees, finding out that their employees actually prefer to work from home, or they would like some kind of balance where maybe it's 2 or 3 days in the office and the remaining days at home. And so a lot of different flexibilities. So I don't know how this is going to impact, honestly, urban centers or downtowns, right? You have companies who owned all this real estate, this commercial office real estate in major urban centers. And now they're realizing that maybe they only need half of that square footage. Because at the end of the day, they're also looking at their numbers too, right? So I think it's going to impact the way our downtowns look. That's going to impact restaurants. That's going to impact the real estate. It's going to impact a lot of different things. It's also going to impact cities, because if you think about it, if you can live in DC, but not pay DC rent, if you can live in DC and have your DC job, but not pay DC rent, you could live in San Francisco, but you don't have, or if you could, work in San Francisco, but not live in San Francisco. If you can work in New York, but not live in New York, right? How does that change things too, right? What's the influx or the impact on the population base of these cities, especially these overpriced cities that people can barely afford to live in? How does that change things? You know what I mean? So the next few years are going to be interesting to see how this develops, to be honest.
Yeah, man, I've always thought about that. I mean, I work from, I live on top of my office, and for me, I remember when I was rehabbing the place, I had specific things that I wanted to have.
Yeah, you
And
should have called me.
man, I don't know why I didn't. Oh, because Marcus was my structural engineer, and he was like,
Marcus is a good dude.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, we do. It was like a package deal with him and El Dante. But anyway,
yeah.
Back to the program. So yeah, I remember having that in mind, man, when I was going through this, man. And at the time, I didn't understand. I was like an architect. I was like, why do I need an architect? You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know that the architect was the one that had to like put their stamp on all of the blueprints before anything got done. I was totally clueless. And then they were like, oh yeah, you got to pay for I was like, pay for the blueprints. I was like, man, all of these costs, man, that I did not know about, prior to doing
any and all project, man, that's going to go for a permit. It has to be stamped by a local licensed architect, man. So yeah, it's part of the process. Even the major projects, the major high rise you see going up, there's an architect that stamped those drawings and took on that liability. So,
what is it like, man? And I don't know anything about architecture, but I'm thinking it's probably like any other profession where the higher you rise in that profession, it's probably, not as many people of color in the room. Is that the experience that you've had?
Oh yeah, absolutely. it's interesting. So I grew up and I don't even think I knew or consciously knew any architects growing up. There was one older gentleman he was actually a Black gentleman who was part of my church growing up back in Denver, Colorado, who I found out later once I was a student at Howard studying architecture that he was an architect, but I had no idea growing up. And so in my mind, I wasn't really exposed to any architects until I got to Howard, and I was kind of blessed and fortunate because they were all Black architects. Most people don't even meet Black architects. Even most Black architectural professionals don't meet any other Black architects when they go to school until they get into the profession. So I was exposed to that at a very early age, or at least as a student. But no, our numbers are depressingly low overall.
Is it that is it that we just don't know that this profession exists? Is it that we giving up too soon? Like,
I think it's a combination of things. I think again, we talked earlier about the misconceptions, and I think that doesn't do a good job or does a pretty good job of discouraging a lot of students from even considering. I mean, when you and I grew up, right, everybody was like probably a year saying be a lawyer, be a doctor. Nobody was telling you to be an architect, so it wasn't even a thought in your head, right? There were the typical go-to professions. Those people who find architecture, it's really by circumstance and chance. That really kind of comes into play. But at the end of the day, it's critically important that we find a way to increase our numbers of representation in the field, because you're talking about what I would say. I think our current numbers right now across all of the licensed architects in the United States, African American architects make up a little bit more than 2%. 2%, and licensed Black female architects are 0.2%. They're not even
really?
1%. They don't even make 1%.
Wow.
I mean, it's scary. And so and we're talking about these are people who are controlling and part of the actual construction and the design and the development of our communities. And so it's critically important that we have representation at the table. We're talking about development that's going on in our backyards. So I'm always, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing here in Chicago and that we're doing with NOMA across the country, just with Project Pipeline and trying to introduce minority students to career opportunities in architecture and design. And I think we just need more initiatives and programming and exposure, and more opportunities and channels like this where we can talk about architecture and just kind of start to plant those seeds in the next generation.
Damn. Yeah, I didn't know that those numbers were so low. I mean, what does it do you ever feel like that you don't have a voice because you're in the minority, or is that not coming to play?
You always, I would say, as minorities within the profession, typically, I think, there's always been some type of hurdle, roadblock, discouragement. I think it'd be almost impossible not to feel, like your voice is drowned out, or you're not being heard, or you're not taken seriously, you're not given the opportunities, that you should be afforded. And honestly, it's probably a lot of the reasons why our numbers are so low. There's a lot of people who graduate, who come out of schools of architecture and just never get licensed. I think about my class at Howard. So I'm class of 05. I think we had maybe close to 30 students that graduated with me out of the School of Architecture. I don't know the exact number, but I'm guessing out of all my classmates, maybe 5 of us are licensed. So you have 25 of us who have architecture degrees and never got licensed. And some of that, you have some of us went on and we're on the construction side, right? We're working for construction managers. Some are like owners reps, right? Others went into engineering. Some folks went into graphic design. There's a lot of different things you can do with an architectural degree because it teaches you a lot of different skill sets and tools. But for whatever reason, it's always like a low number of folks that actually go all the way through and get licensed. It's really, really small when you look at female licensed architects, female minority licensed architects, that are in the profession, that are in the industry. And we're just trying to find ways to increase those numbers.
Damn. I mean, did you feel that Howard prepared you adequately?
Yes, I did. Overall, yes. So there were some things that, I kind of needed, which is why I ended up going to grad school, right? There were some things that I think Howard did an amazing job preparing me for. Overall, I would say the education, especially with the School of Architecture at Howard, it's very well rounded, right? You have some schools that are very, very focused on design. You have some architectural schools that are very focused on technical. You have other schools that are very focused on history and theory. Howard wasn't really kind of like zeroing in or focused on any of that, but they covered everything thoroughly, right? And so it kind of gave me a good solid foundation. I think Howard is focused on preparing their students, their architectural students, to come into the industry and be productive, effective, solid architects and designers, right? We know a little bit of everything, and we're able to step in, come into the workforce, get work with a firm, and be a solid major contributor to an office and to a firm culture. Howard did a really, really good job at that. But I had to go to grad school. I had to go to Columbia to get my master's in urban design and architecture because one, I wanted to kind of zero in and do more focused on planning and urban design. But two, I also wanted to learn more software applications. There were a lot of software applications that I really never even touched when I was at
Damn.
Howard. It
Had to do
was
a freehand at Howard, boy. He got a napkin,
which
a
I ain't
napkin and
gonna,
a pen. They was like, "Yo, make it happen, Pugh."
I'm not gonna lie to you because actually the first I think two or 3 years of that program is pen and paper. So,
Man,
but
after that graphic calculator, that was it. That was as far as we went, man.
you
No,
might have hit it on the head, man.
that's tough, man. I mean, sometimes you gotta have them resources. Because I wanted to ask you, how much, like, was it an eye opener when you got to use technology? Like, oh damn, I could damn near create anything, if you give me the right budget and I got this software with me.
Well, so that's the problem now, right? You have all this like parametric modeling, and there's all these software applications that'll go out there. If you're designing like a high-rise building, you can go out there and work with different software applications like Grasshopper and Rhino and whatnot, and do all this parametric modeling, and it'll spit out. I mean, if you just kind of write the code, it'll spit out 100 variations of your design based upon the limitations, and parameters that you set. you know, you do that, but you don't really have a real sense of design. You
Yeah.
don't have a you don't have a real sense of, some of the design moves and the concepts and some of the changes that you're making. So, I actually appreciate, I think the foundation and the fundamentals that Howard kind of taught me, because I took that with me when I started learning those software applications, and it kind of gave me a much better understanding. I kind of feel bad for some of the students who are just thrown and thrusted into these programs, without even understanding design, and spitting out like these crazy awesome geometric forms, but they have no idea how this thing is going to stand up. They have no idea what the flow and circulation and the programming and adjacencies is going to be. I mean, it's they're kind of robbed of, I think, some of those critical design tools that's
Oh,
needed.
so you're an old schooler, huh? Like
Well,
put the
to some
computer
degree,
up.
but I'm not gonna bust out no T square. So I mean, like, don't get it. I'm not gonna come with no T square micro pens either.
Damn, man. So, man, you was recently quoted in Forbes, man. So tell me about that, man. I heard you was dropping bars.
Yeah, actually, this week, man, I was quoted in Forbes. There were five. They did kind of like this parse interview where they interviewed five different industry thought leaders, and asked our take on design, wellness, and I kind of came in with the spin of equity inclusion, how quality design and health and wellness is tied to diversity, equity, inclusion, and how it's needed, as we kind of spit and talking about now, across multiple communities. So yeah, it was a great opportunity. It was really kind of afforded to my team. They reached out to NOMA and wanted to get a quote from me and some thoughts on the subject matter. So it was exciting and fortunate to be featured.
That's what's up, man. So I know one of the things you have in your bio, man. You talk about a passion for developing underserved communities, and in Chicago, and I'm sure it's like this in all cities, man. You drive from the south side, you go to the north side. I mean, you can see where back in the day,
Yeah.
the architecture was like kind of even, but like now when you drive, you take that drive, it's like night and day in terms of neighborhoods, in terms of
Yeah.
the outdoor living that people are adding to their house, in terms of the rooftop decks that people have. I mean, and I know cost is, these things are costly, but um, it kind of come full circle when you talk about if you don't have that representation, if you don't have people from our community going and working at these firms, nobody's gonna really care about beautifying, our areas, man. Can you talk about some of the work that you've been doing in underserved communities?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we talked about the former Harold Ickes, the three CHA projects that I've worked on between Harold Ickes, Oakwood Shores, and Cabrini Green, Woodlawn Station, which is actually a new development. It was constructed a few years ago. So that's at the tail end of the Green Line off of 63rd and Cottage Grove. Next time you're there, be sure to check it out. There's it's right there on the corner. It's a mid-rise, a mixed-use project, about 55 units. Has ground level retail that kind of wraps the base of the corner. And it's a metal panel building, has coloration of gray, red, and hue tone colors.
Oh, that's
But
dope.
it's affordable housing project that was there, that we created. And I was part of one of the lead designers on that project. And what was interesting about that project was it actually came out of the One Woodlawn master plan. So if you know about Woodlawn, I know that, but the One Woodlawn master plan was a lot of the community residents and stakeholders. They came together and they were really focused and worried about, there was the announcement of the Obama Presidential Center. They were worried about this coming online. They were worried about gentrification. They were already seeing developers coming in and buying up some of the empty land, empty lots and whatnot across the neighborhood. And so they came together working with various community stakeholders and also the city to create this community master plan. So through that process, we came in, we were working on that project for a bit, working with community residents, giving them a stake and some ownership in the process, doing some education piece, and to kind of give them what some of the limitations and opportunities were, with the new development that was coming online, and where they wanted to see, I think, more energy and effort go in terms of the sequence and phasing of their own community and the projects. So through that, we identified a major intersection and major arterial corridor, which was 63rd Street and Cottage Grove. There's a node there, obviously, with the CTA station. And so that became one of the focal points where we designated that concentrated development needed to take place. From there, a client kind of reached out to Gensler, asked us if we'd be interested in working on the project, Woodlawn Station, and we were pulled into the fold, and we were actually then working on that project on that lot, on that corner. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the projects that I learned a lot on. It was, definitely, I would say, one of my first few years when I was at Gensler, but one of the projects where I worked on with a very, very small team, and I can really kind of look at it and say I had a lot of ownership in that project, and everything since then has just been a blessing. I've been able to kind of work on and move from there.
Damn.
We did some work on down over like South Shore, so did some work off of Stony Island corridor for like the Astor Gates. We were doing a study on a lot of different properties along that strip, so we're looking at community corridors where the constraints and opportunities are, where the development opportunities are, and then the other piece is kind of connecting, I think, these developers and these projects with some of the folks in the community who want to invest and want to get involved and want to have a voice, in the process.
Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. Damn, man. How does it feel, man, to drive past projects like, yo, this is me right here. You know what I'm saying? It's all me. I did that.
You know what, man? The very first time I actually kind of took somebody on a tour was this past Thanksgiving. My pops, he was actually he was in town for Thanksgiving, and I drove him around the city. It literally took maybe like 6 hours driving around, showing him
Oh,
all the
really?
property. Yeah, man, that was
Damn.
probably the first time that I did. I mean, we were going all the way out west to Oak Park. Went up north, saw a few of my projects, near like Wrigleyville, and then of course a lot of the projects that I've touched on the south and west side, man. So it was cool. It was cool to do that. That was actually an experience for me.
That's what's up, man. So certified planner, architect. If I'm in one of these neighborhoods that, like we see Woodlawn underwent a massive transformation in terms of appreciation, and we see the same thing happen in Northwest DC by Howard, man. Like, what are some of the signs that people should look for? Like, yo,
Starbucks.
Starbucks popping up here,
That's a joke, right? Like, I mean, there's a couple of different cues. I mean, there's a couple of different cues. When you see some of the development, taking place along major arterial corridors, right? So these are like major boulevards and parkways, those type of intersections. That's usually the easiest and quickest opportunities for development, right? So usually you'll see folks when there's a concentrated plan or master plan that's an effort, like they'll focus on those major corridors first. Then there's usually like an infill process where you're talking about those interior vacant lots, right? And usually the first to market, the first folks who are kind of developing those are independent developers, right? They're small developers who are coming in and they're doing flips. They're flipping that's what was happening in Woodlawn, which really started to scare and get, I think, some of the residents a little bit worried. There's a few different cues. You also start to see some beautification on some of the public ways, public parkways. We're talking about that the parkways are from the right of way to the curb, right? So, or excuse me, from the property line to the curb, sidewalk, parkways. A little bit more treatment, attention, and care in some of those public spaces. So but it all happens kind of like in small incremental steps, right?
Damn.
You start to see
The writing is on the wall, huh? Writing be on the wall. It's like hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this, man. That whole area, everything by Howard, man, it is insane, man. It doesn't even look like anything I
It's
even
crazy, ain't it?
as a student, man. It is insane. It is
crazy.
I can't even imagine being a student at Howard right now.
Oh, they got everything at their fingertips.
Everything.
Bro,
they got rooftop restaurants and bars, and you got white women walking their dog at 11 at night down U Street. Like it is wow.
Yeah. I mean, that whole U Street corridor, like you can go shopping. Like we had up against the wall, and like that was it.
And
you know what I'm saying? Total. I mean, but it was like you're wearing street gear to the park.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, you ain't going to Banana Republic. Like they got everything, man.
They got a Banana Republic down there.
I'm just saying they probably do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like in terms of food options, I mean.
Yeah, it was limited. It was
McDonald's. Yeah. That dollar menu was your friend. You know what I'm saying?
You had McDonald's. You had Subway. I think that might have been the extent of fast food that we had over in that little area.
Yeah, that whole area's changed so much, man. So, speaking of Howard, man, I mean, what was some of your good times, man? Your good moments? Because did you originally start at Howard?
No, actually, I was a transfer student. Ironically, my freshman year, I was at a school in Colorado called Fort Lewis College. It was a Division II school. I was out there playing basketball my freshman year, trying to chase those hoop dreams, and I hated it.
You ain't like hooping, man?
No, I loved playing on the team, man. I hated the school that I went to. It was about 6 hours from Denver. So the school I went to in Denver, I went to George Washington High School, which is one of the larger public high schools, maybe about I'd say about 3,500 students. And probably, I would say maybe 70% Black. So, going from that type of large public high school and then going out to, Durango, Colorado, which was like 6 hours away near the Four Corners, where there was maybe 2 or 3 black girls and maybe 30 black guys, but all the black guys were either on the football team or basketball team, and that was pretty much it. It was just a completely different experience. And like I told you, I mean, I knew at an early age I wanted to go to an HBCU. My older sister, she went to Southern, so I already kind of like knew about the HBCU experience. I got accepted. I got accepted into several HBCUs. Howard was one of them at a high school, but ended up going to this Division II school, Fort Lewis College, instead. So was there for a year, hated it, transferred to Morris Brown. I was at Morris Brown in Atlanta. So transferred to an HBCU. They were actually the only school in the AUC that had architecture. So I started taking my architectural courses at Morris Brown. But when I got down there, found everything I was looking for. I had family there. Found, I think, like the college social life that I was looking for, the whole experience, the HBCU experience. But they were in jeopardy of losing their accreditation. I didn't even know what accreditation meant. Like when I went, until I got to Morris Brown, I was finding out that, the school was in jeopardy of losing it, and my degree wasn't going to be worth the paper it was printed on. That was the way it was kind of presented to me, and I had to figure out what I was going to do. So from Morris Brown, I was there that full year, but I wanted to stay in Atlanta, but no other school had architecture. As part of the AUC, my only other option was Georgia Tech, and I couldn't afford Georgia Tech out-of-state tuition. So I applied to Howard and was able to transfer to Howard. So technically, when I came to Howard, which was 2001, that was technically my 3rd year of college.
Wow.
But they put me in the 2nd year of the architectural program, which, as you mentioned, was a 5-year program. So yeah, man. So I still had 4 years at Howard as part of to finish out their 5-year undergraduate bachelor program.
How was your Howard experience?
Man, I loved Howard.
Oh yeah.
I loved Howard. You know what was funny, man? I remember getting there. So again, I had the whole experience of the AUC, and I was like, I loved being down in Atlanta. And then I get to DC. You might have been one of the first people I met, to be honest with you, man. You was running around as a campus pal, taking everybody to King's Dominion. You might have been one of the first people I think I met when I got down there. But I get to Howard, and we're like maybe less than a month in, and 9/11 hits, and I mean, literally, that was the year when I transferred, to Howard. And if you remember,
that was crazy, bro.
You remember, like waking up and
all the people in the street,
smoke from the Pentagon, and you got tanks going down the street, and they talking about martial law, and professors, they don't know what's going to happen. Some people, there's all these rumors saying, they're going to shut down DC, and we may have to go back home. And I'm thinking, man, I just got here, and already I'm about to have to pack up and go back home. I mean, luckily, none of that came to fruition. And, as tragic as 9/11 was, that was actually one of my first experiences at Howard, was being in Carver Hall.
Had a tough time picking up these schools, man.
Man, being in Carver Hall.
What was that like, bro? Carver Hall.
Everybody just kind of like glued to a TV. Everybody's glued to a TV just watching the news, man.
Damn, Carver Hall, man. I think that's condos right now.
Yeah. Yep. And they converted slow. I heard they converted slow to condos. Man, it's is Howard still on Meridian? I mean, I
think they did something like 30-year lease or something like
Meridian.
That. Something like that. But yeah, it's not a dorm.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Things have changed, bro. Things have changed, man. When you was at Howard, so you got to Howard, so what,
2001.
Were you like 2 years older than your classmates, or a year older?
Yeah, I would say I was 2 years older, because that was my 3rd year of school, 3rd year of college. But I was coming in as a
OG. Student. So you was an OG. So you was were you hanging out with your classmates, or who were you hanging out with? Because that architecture program is kind of small and separate from everybody else.
Yeah. So it was interesting. I mean, I put it like this. I definitely spent a lot of time out of the architecture studio, especially my first few years, man. I gotta give a lot of shout out to my professors who had a lot of patience with me, because I was those first few years of school, I was more interested in hanging out in the yard than
Man,
being up in the classroom.
I couldn't imagine being at Howard now with all of the resources they have at their fingertips. Plus, I mean, well, I didn't even have internet, bro. So you know what I mean? Just the stuff they probably getting into now, man.
Yeah.
I mean, socially, man, how was it? You know, going from I mean, because you went from the school in Colorado to Morris Brown to Howard, it was easy adjustment.
Yeah, I think, once you're already kind of used to kind of jumping around and picking up and starting over and meeting new friends, doing that, kind of consistently, a few years back to back. When I got to Howard, I mean, it was pretty smooth and an easy transition. There were a few folks, like some other kind of like transfer students that I kind of connected with,
Yeah.
that first year, and then started to, really connect with a lot of my classmates in the architectural program. I mean, a lot of us are still tight. Even to this day, when you have the majority, 80% of your classes with the same group of folks for, 4 years, you definitely build tight bonds. And then, I had the whole total sport crew.
Oh, that's right. I remember you was slanging them fitteds, bro. I remember that, bro.
was
You was slanging them fitted hats, man.
playing them fitteds and them throwbacks, man.
How was that working there, man?
Man, that was crazy.
For real?
Total Sport was insane, because that was during the height of all the jerseys, the throwback jerseys and the fitteds, and it was a brand new store right there off of Georgia Avenue across McDonald's, and
So y'all was cashing out in there.
Everybody and mom was coming up in there, man. Everybody, and so you would see, everybody, whether it was like every rapper, entertainer, ball player, Mark and Taz, from Dream, like they rolling up in there, and and they over here, they had a whole deal worked out with the folks at Total Sport. We kind of took care of them. They took care of us when we got to the club on Fridays. So it was crazy, man. I worked there part-time.
Yo, man, I know you got some crazy stories, man. I
worked there part-time probably like 2.5 years, man. So like my last 2.5 years at Howard, I worked at Total Sport.
Damn, yeah, I remember that, bro. Cause them Jay-Z was making, throwback jerseys and fitteds like the thing. It was like you had to have one.
Everybody back then, man. Yeah, it's crazy. I got like probably about like 150 hats just like sitting in like just boxes, man. I haven't touched them in years. And I got all these throwback jerseys that are probably 3-4 times my size, 4XL, 3XL, because that was the style back then, right? And can't even fit them, don't wear them, and they just sitting in a trunk, man.
That's crazy.
In a while,
I ain't played one down of football. I got every jersey, every jersey on the man. Insane. So what advice do you have for the 18-year-old Jason Pugh, man, that's coming to Howard, man, or maybe even a transfer student that's coming to Howard and trying to achieve greatness?
You know what? Looking back then, I think it would have been awesome if I had buckled down a little bit earlier, and kind of really zeroed in and focused on my studies. I definitely experienced, that Howard experience. I took it all in those first few years, and then it was my last 2 years at Howard where I really kind of like buckled down and really focused on my program. But like I said, man, I really appreciate the professors that I had that saw potential in me, even maybe when I didn't see it necessarily in myself. It's been awesome now, at this position now for me to be the president of NOMA, to go back to Howard and connect and talk with those same professors, and kind of help connect and reach some of the students that are there that are going through the program. But I would just say, even still, I guess I would just tell, the younger Jason, man, take it all in, do as much as you can, experience as much as you can, and, have more confidence and persistence within yourself and within your goals.
What about, man, you the guy, man, that you've been able to successfully maneuver in multiple circles, man, not just falling into the trap of I got black friends or which we commonly do just being black, but even more so, being from Howard, man, you know, um, how do navigate? Because I had a tough time in corporate America. After Howard, it was culture shock, and I went to all white, all boy high school. Howard was just like love. Then it was trying to work after that. I was like, I can't do this. How have you been successfully able to navigate, man? Because when I come to your events, you got multicultural crowd. Obviously, being in architecture, man, you've risen to the top of that profession.
We talking about private now. We talking about private.
Yeah,
Dre and Jay.
We need to talk about that, man. Private, which is the brand that's popping here in Chicago and in other parts of the U.S. With the Dish Day party, and unfortunately, COVID canceled a lot of people's dreams and aspirations. But yeah, man, how have you been able to successfully do that? Because it's not all work with you.
Yeah, I think the whole navigation piece, like I said, I think just already going to so many schools, being used to moving into a city where I don't know anybody, or going to a school where I don't know anybody and kind of start from scratch. I mean, I did that in Chicago, right? Moved here in 2007, didn't really know anybody, reached out to you. Again, I think you might have been one of the first people I connected with when I moved here in Chicago in 2007. It's funny though. I mean, in terms of like just moving in different circles, it could be also, I think, maybe my ethnic ambiguity. A lot of folks don't know what I'm mixed with. They don't know what I am. And when I was growing up in Denver, they knew I was either black and white or black or Mexican, but they didn't know which. They just knew I was mixed. I get to Howard, everybody thinks I'm Ethiopian. I go to Columbia, New York. Everybody thinks I'm Dominican, Puerto Rican. I come to Chicago, and everybody thinks I'm Indian. So it's like, it's
we need to have an unveiling, man.
Everybody's so disappointed when I tell them that, I'm just black and white, man. But I'm telling you, man, I've had folks come up to me, on the street, thinking I'm Dominican or Puerto Rican, speaking Spanish to me. Oh yeah, speaking Spanish to me. And they're like telling me, you need to know your language. You need to know your language. And I'm trying to like blanco y negro, like no habla español. They're like, yeah, it's kind of wild, man.
Sounds like somebody's been to the Dominican one too many times.
Blanco y negro.
So yeah, I mean, even them parties, man, you was doing back in 2007, these are some of the most epic parties. Definitely the most epic house party I've ever been to, man. I mean, these joints, these were some of the most epic house. I remember you hit me up. I was like, yeah, I go when I go. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I got there. I was like, yo, this what y'all been on the whole time? Yo, well, man.
I mean, one, let's be honest. I mean, me finding the penthouse, that was a steal. That was a steal. I mean, and I think you knew. So like that building, 8th and State, where I was staying down in the South Loop downtown, that whole building was a dorm. It was a student dorm for like Columbia College and Roosevelt, but it was originally designed as an apartment building. So at the top, you had these 4 penthouses, right, on each corner that were like a duplex penthouse with the big, large roof deck, man. And to be honest with you, my cousin, she found it. She found the penthouse. She was like, yo, like, we got to check out this spot. We went up there, did a walkthrough, and they told me how much they were charging, which was nothing. I was like, wait, that can't be right. Are you sure that's correct? That's the rent? She's like, yeah, this is it. I was like, yo, we're like filling out an application today. Yeah. And we jumped on it, man. And once we started having like the little get-togethers, it started small. It was like, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day. We have a few folks out on the rooftop, on the deck, barbecuing, and they folk, we would do it every holiday during the summer, and more people kind of invite some folks. More people kind of invite.
The parties was epic. If you didn't get there at a certain time, it was a wrap. And then if you ain't get there at the next certain time, the other entry, the back door was a wrap. And then if you ain't get there at the other certain time, You just literally just stayed downstairs and waited for people to come out. Like, yo,
But it's crazy, Josh. Like, I mean, I don't know how you kind of like found your way into the whole promotional circle, but it was something that I was never ever trying to do. We were doing the penthouse parties. That was successful, and it literally, it really started with the building manager who made us submit a guest list. And again, this was just a barbecue, like a holiday barbecue. So
barbecue, one piece of chicken and 1,000 people.
But she was, and the building manager was holding us to it. She was like, no, I need this guest list. And I would tell her, well, I invited Josh, but I have no idea who Josh is inviting. So, how do I create this list? But she made us do it. So what we did was we just kind of created like an Eventbrite. We didn't charge anybody. We were like, hey, we need everybody's email information. Bring in anybody, make sure they fill this out so we can give them this list. Josh, man, we did that. We gave her a list and emails. Once you have 3,800 emails and contact information, I mean, at that point, you can kind of start.
When you think about like COVID and the pandemic, like people may never experience something like that. They might experience like in some suburban house where it's like a lot of land, but like never overlooking the lake downtown with. And to be honest, man, I mean, in a city like Chicago, man, Black folks don't get to, we don't get to experience that at such a young age, man. So, I mean, those parties were epic, bro. I mean, the women, oh my goodness, the views. And they all in your crib. I'm like, yo, man, let me stop, man. But anyway, bro. Anyway, man. Yo, man. So what's the future, man? I mean, what are some things that you want to accomplish, as you embark on this in journey as being an architect?
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now I'm focused on these next 2 years, serving as the president of NOMA. So, for those who may be watching the podcast, I know I've mentioned NOMA, but NOMA is the National Organization of Minority Architects. And I've been involved with the organization since I was a student at Howard. They have professional chapters that are in different, cities. And then you have student chapters at different schools of architecture across the country. And I joined NOMA as a student at Howard and served as the president of the student chapter, I think in 2004. And so since that time, I've been involved here in Chicago with the organization. I've served as a local chapter president, and I've served in a different capacities on the national executive board, and now this is day 7, January 7th. This is day 7 of my 2-year term as the national president of this organization. So, have a lot. With me being part of the organization for so long, I have a lot of goals and plans and focus, I think, for the organization, and I have a clear idea where I'd like us to move the organization, focused on more recruitment and retention. My predecessor, Kimberly Dowdell, who was a great friend, she's the immediate past president. She was really focused on expanding and increasing our members. I'm actually going to be more focused on retention. Finding ways for us to retain the members that we have. And that all starts by, I think, creating value. I want our members and being a part of NOMA. So that's going to be one of my focuses over the next 2 years during my term as president.
How many members in NOMA?
Man, I think currently we have about maybe 2,500 members. But our database is well over 10,000. So again, wow. We're talking, that's the whole retention
party,
piece. People join. But that's the whole retention piece, right? People come in the organization, but then they don't stay. They don't, for whatever reason, whether maybe they're involved as a student or they come in as a professional, they don't stay.
That's a lot of power, man. That's a lot of power, and that's a lot of power that you got, man. Being and responsibility, bro. Being having that title when you consider that it's only 2%, African Americans or people of color in architecture, and you're over a 10,000 person organization, man. That's pretty dope.
a lot of responsibility, but a lot of shared power. Definitely not a dictatorship. I have an executive board that I work with. The immediate past president, she's part of the board. And then my successor, her name is Pascal Sablan. She's based out of New York. She's a beast. She's my right-hand man. So collectively, the three of us work together with our executive board, and we just try to find ways to kind of push forward, initiatives to really increase the recruitment, retention, and advancement of minority architects within the profession.
Wow, man. Jason Pugh, man, Denver, Colorado's finest, man. Thank you for coming on the show, bro. I appreciate it. You've been a great guest, man.
And Josh, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite. This was awesome, man.
For sure. Thank you for joining the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight folks that have contributed to the Howard legacy at the highest levels. To hear more interviews or purchase merchandise, please visit www.humovemakers.com.